people happy because they know what it's like to feel absolutely worthless. And they don't want anyone else to feel that. That's what Robin Williams said before he committed suicide. And we are here today, and you're supposed to decide whether or not somebody should live or die by your command. And this is my last opportunity to talk to you about Jason. Because the state came up here and told you that this decision is based on the victim and how he died and who he was. And that would have been true in a guilt phase, when you were to determine whether or not the defendant committed a murder in the first degree, but that has been decided for you. We are here to punish, and punish severely, and punish harshly, because there are two punishments here, and they are both severe, and they are both harsh. But one, there is no taking back, and that is the death penalty. The death penalty that they are asking you to command of somebody that was a child at the time of the offense. Do we kill Jason Banegas? Must we kill Jason Banegas? Is that the only option that you have? Absolutely not. The law never requires you to kill. The law never requires you to command it. The law never requires you to vote for it. This case is about the man that he has become, but also the child that he was. And in order to know who he was, we did bring you everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. We didn't hide anything. We never pretended that car hopping is okay. But we wanted you to understand. A little boy that had this responsibility that was crushing him, not only to feed himself, but to feed his siblings, because mom wasn't there to do so. Neither was dad or anybody. Life in prison without the possibility of parole is not a walk in the park. Life in prison without the possibility of parole takes away all of your choices. You will never get out. You will never walk on the beach and feel the sand between his toes or hear the ocean. He will never be able to give his family a hug on a whim whenever he wants. We are not here to talk about life in prison as the life that you could imagine in the best possible scenario. Oh no, it is a punishment. And the law is very clear about that. What it really comes down to is whether Jason will spend the rest of his life waiting to die naturally or by violence inside of a prison, or he will die by your command. That's what it comes down to. They bring in Jason here as an adult, but they don't want you to consider who he is. They want you to label him a monster and be okay with it, but they don't understand who he is, but you know who does.
All right, let's quickly bring back in our guest for this hour. Still with us, Wendy Patrick. And Wendy, I want to ask you about the tone of the defense attorney. And the first thing that came in my mind was, I understand you have to zealously advocate for the defendant under these circumstances, but how hard do you go at the jury? Because on the other side of everything you say, for instance, he'll never be able to hug his children or anything like that. Well, neither will the victim in this case.
Michael, you are always anticipating what I'm going to say. That's exactly right. As I watched and I listened, I had the exact same thoughts that you just mentioned, is you could turn every one of these arguments around, and I'm sure the jury's already mentally doing that in their mind. What's different in a case like this is, as you mentioned earlier, the age, so they're 10 years apart. Nonetheless, she's really going hard, to answer your first question, with the language she's using. She is referring to him as a child. He's a man now. He was a child then. And you mentioned something right before we went to break about the age. And I think that's what's going to come down to.
We're coming up against a hard break here. I truly apologize. But thank you so much for joining us this hour. Folks, stick around. We got much more coming up from Florida. Keep it here on Court TV. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Before we get you back to court in Florida, a quick update on developments that we've been following out of California. The son of famed director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle has been arrested after his parents were found stabbed to death in their Los Angeles area home. Nick Reiner is now being held on $4 million bond. Court TV's own Cody Thomas will join us live from the ground later this afternoon with more updates from there. But for right now, we are in Florida, bringing you the penalty phase for a man charged in the death of a police officer. Jason Banegas pled guilty to the October 2020 murder of Officer Yandy Chirino, who was shot while responding to a call about someone breaking into vehicles in the Hollywood, Florida area. I want to get you back inside the courtroom now for more of the defense team's closing argument.
So remember who Jason is in the pyramid. Is he beyond redemption? Is he the worst of the worst? I say no. What say you? So you saw the video of Ingrid, and she suffers every day from her own trauma. She didn't know how to be a mom. She wanted to have that baby, maybe to save herself, to have something to love and someone to love her, and she does. She loves in her own way when she can, but she does have somebody that loves her and loves her deeply. She's a fragile person that Kat told you, it's like a personal doll that they have to take care of. And even if he looks like a rapist, she loves him. And she told you and begged you for his life. And she asked for forgiveness for him. If I could give my life for my son, I would. And Jason has touched people's lives in positive and meaningful ways. Gerardo was losing his best friend. He'd been losing during the program, and Jason was depressed and suicidal, but he uplifted Gerardo in his worst pain. And the last words between friends were thank you, and I whispered, you're welcome. That has meaning. That's another reason for life. Eddie Colon told you that he talks to Jason every day. He told you that Jason is like a brother to him, that he's a good kid at his core, that he had dreams for his future, and that his music is full of pain. He still listens to his music. He told you that he loves him. And he tried to hold back tears, but I suspect you all felt it. Jason was there to look out for Michael. Michael, who sees him as the only father figure that he truly had. Michael, who knows that Jason protected him and cared for him. They had a difference in age, about 3 years. Michael, who told you that nothing hurts more than rejection from a mother. No relationship, no girl, nothing like a mom's rejection of her love. And he witnessed that a lot, from Ingrid to Jason, but he never hardened. Still loves her deeply, still protects her, still wants to her. He told you that he loves Jason and Jason is capable of loving. Xenia came here and acknowledged that she is not someone that's proud of her past. She acknowledged what she did to her kids, what her and Ingrid did to Jason, to Kat. She told you that after she changed her life, she would stop by and try to feed the kids. But Ingrid was not having it because it's very shameful to continue where Xenia stopped. And she begged you for his life. She came and she spoke to you about her niñito. And that is my little boy, the child of her heart. And she begged for you to give him another chance and not shut the door on him like everyone has shut the door on him. And to keep it open so that he could walk through it. Kat, his twin, said that she would trade places with him and that it should have been him being here instead of her. That she should be the one sitting at that table because she regrets her decision to give him a gun to cheer him up. We were teenagers. We wanted to be our little rapper. Thought the gun was cool. She thought it would cheer him up. It's a terrible decision to give a gun to somebody suicidal. You didn't even hear only from Kat that he was suicidal. The other boy that he was with, the boy that he met that same day or the night before, said that he was suicidal before meeting the cop. Kat said that whatever she does for Jason, and that she suspects he would have done it 10 times better. And she remembers the last time that she gave him a hug. A long time ago. She wishes that she could hug him and wants him to have a life to be around so that she could share her successes with him. So that he could live through her. Like when she graduates from college or someday he could meet her kids. She said he made a mistake, but he's still good, and she loves him. Jason didn't have anybody to stand for him. This is Jason and Kat. They didn't have anybody to stand up for them at all. They suffered, they lived a hard life. But none of that is an excuse or a justification. The problem is that nobody protected them. The problem is that he didn't have a hero. But you, each and every one of you, can be his hero. You can protect him. And you can help him continue being a friend to Gerardo. You can help him continue being a son to Ingrid, that broken doll. You can help him be a brother to Eddie Colon and to Michael. You can help him be a brother to Michelle, his little siblings, to Daniel and Daniela. And you can help him stay alive and be a brother to Catherine. His life, it has meaning to them. He can still open his heart and be a positive impact to others. We can have a resolution without further death. It is not necessary to kill him to bring justice. He will be punished and punished harshly if you choose life. Remember that we can give mercy to the least deserving. That mercy is not earned or deserved. It is something that is bestowed, and you give it because it's the right thing to do. Mercy is what makes us civilized. Giving mercy will say more about you than about what he did that horrible night. And you can keep the door open for him instead of shutting it like everybody else in his life. A verdict for life will keep that door open. And you can allow, through mercy, for him to hug his sister again. The sister of his heart.
All right, an emotional closing argument by the defense there, asking this jury for mercy on behalf of this defendant. Let's welcome in our guest for this hour, joining us, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Panetta. Marie, great to see you as always. And when you get to see all of the defense's closing argument because of audio issues, just want to run through a couple of things and I'll check in with you. She talks about his youth at the time of the crime, also the trauma he suffered as a young man, the fact that his mother had many, many problems, including drug addiction, and he was out there on his own. He had to feed himself during his youth, so if he didn't steal, he couldn't eat. There were some suicide attempts she talked about in custody, and family members who came in and talked about being very emotional and talking about still loving this young man, and that perhaps being a reason for mercy as well. Marie, I want to check in with you about how you think she did, but also I want you to speak to the emotion that we saw. It's not often you see an attorney crying during a closing argument in a situation like this.
While I was off camera, I actually asked ChatGPT how to explain a person with an intensely emotional voice. And they said it's audibly emotional quivering. I had to look and listen twice because I thought that it was a family member on the stand talking because I wasn't paying attention. She did an excellent job because her job is to compel the jurors not to put him to death, and she made it seem like she was a family member. It touched me, and I was covering the case last week, and they had an expert who checked off all the boxes for mitigation in this situation. And I said I didn't think there was a chance that any jury would find him, able to be put to death, because all of the mitigators are there for him. The upbringing, his age, the underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, and the fact that he wasn't involved in an act where he was committing a crime, where he had a gun and went out to intentionally shoot the victim. All of it came into play. Her delivery was so compelling. I think she nailed it and saved his life.
All right, fair enough. And as you see there in our deliberations clock, that jury's been at it about an hour and 20 minutes now, Marie. And she talked about something that I want to get your opinion on as to a possible mitigating factors. There were over 40 mitigating factors that she mentioned. To your point, the prosecution conceded a lot of them, but did say none of them rise to the level of overcoming the brutality and ugliness of this crime. Do you think the fact that he tried to commit suicide in prison is something this jury should consider? It can be looked at as possible remorse. It can be looked at as a lot of different things. What are your thoughts on it?
It could be looked at as possible remorse, and it could be looked at as somebody with mental health issues. And I do think that it's important because it is a mitigator. There are so many mitigators in this case, starting from when he was born. His mom was allegedly a sex worker. He had no supervision, no one to take care of him. He didn't know who his father was. He was basically homeless at some point. I mean, there is no more of a case before us that would compel the jurors to spare his life. Tack that with the delivery of that attorney who was quivering, and it sounded like her voice was crying in her delivery to touch the hearts of the jurors. I believe she did an excellent job. She really did.
Now, we heard from the prosecution, and in fact, it is the law in Florida. Jury's not supposed to have sympathy or consider sympathy in that deliberating room. Again, we have to remind folks, it is Florida. Only 8 of 12 are required. We heard mercy. We heard no sympathy considerations, but we want you to have mercy. How does someone distinguish between what's sympathy and what's mercy?
You look at the facts, and you look at the totality of the circumstances, and you look at the circumstances that the crime was committed. And there's nothing that's going to bring this victim back, but the way she said it, to put him to death would just mean to just add another person on the roster of death. Let him live, let him pay for his crime and not take his life. So yes, you can consider both, but you have to consider also the totality of the circumstances in each case where you're choosing to end somebody's life.